Welcome back. It's another big story, I dare say the biggest one from last week amongst many. Last week, this week gone past, the Nigerian Senate confirmed 64 ambassadors nominated by President Bola Tinubu, including former ministers and high-profile public figures who are expected to strengthen Nigeria's diplomatic presence around the world. But this diplomatic milestone comes at a tense moment. The United States has imposed new travel restrictions on Nigerian nationals, suspending many immigrants and non-immigrant visa categories, citing security concerns and high visa overstay rates.
This convergence of events has sparked debate over Nigeria's global image, foreign policy priorities, and implications for travel, business, and international cooperation. And so to help us unpack what this means for Nigeria's diplomacy and its citizens, and of course for the future of Nigeria, we're joined by three experts. First, we have Patience Ndidi Key. She's the president and CEO of Nigeria's Diaspora Chamber of Commerce. She joins us virtually from Lagos. We also have Mr. Ikechukwu Amaechi, who's the editor, niche newspaper, and also a public affairs analyst. Mr. Amaechi, it's good to have you on the program as well as Alexander von Rügen. He is a global affairs policy analyst, joining us live virtually from the overseas, as we like to say. Gentlemen and lady, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you for coming on. Patience, let me start with you. And just get your reaction, or what the immediate reaction has been from Nigerians living abroad, or Nigerians who are back home for the holiday and who have seen this news. What is it like in your community?
The confirmation of the 64 ambassadors for Nigeria, and right now that we face U.S. Travel ban, for me, it signals an escalation of diplomatic pressure rather than just a routine foreign move. Washington is telling us that intentionally they want to recalibrate their global posture using diplomacy as a leverage, visas and mobility restrictions as a leverage for, against countries like Nigeria, where we are failing in governance, security, and human rights. For us, this is consequential because it affects our relationship, it affects our reputation, it affects the political instruments, it affects also diaspora relationship. This will also affect the students, professionals, and investors. For those of us going in and out, it affects also the prices of things, and there's a lot of scare in the air. When this happened a couple of years ago, and a lot of talks about those who have coming with visas, those who have permanent stays, those who even are citizens. So there's a lot of things already happening due to this initiative from the United States government against our country. So it's something that we really need to deal with, because in a situation where the governance is not people-centric in terms of not looking into the security and welfare of the Nigerian people, it attracts external interferences, It is true that Nigeria is a sovereign country, but being a sovereign country does not stop you, does not give you that chance, to expose your people to insecurity, expose your people to non-protection,
right,
and all that.
Patience, I do have to ask whether or not, you are the president of, the Nigerian Diaspora Chamber of Commerce. So would these restrictions also affect businesses, or Nigerians in diaspora who have businesses as well, given that this ban is also on immigrant and non-immigrant visas? What's it looking like in terms of impact? Just very quickly.
Oh yes, it's going to, the implication for Nigeria, diplomatic sovereign, of course it will affect economic and business impact. It will disrupt businesses, travel and deal making. It will disrupt diaspora flows. It will disrupt access to global markets and innovation ecosystem. It will disrupt things like this. Our economy is deeply linked to diaspora capital trade. It is linked to trade facilitation. our economy is linked to professional mobility. So any restriction on movement raises transactional costs. It discourages foreign investments. It weakens the confidence of Nigerian as a reliable partner to any community. When Nigeria was placed on CPC, a country of a particular concern, even taxi drivers, when you Uber drivers, when you enter going somewhere, they talk about Nigeria when they know you're a Nigerian. So this brings a lot of disruption, not only to everything that has to do with economic base concerns human beings.
All right.
So yes, it's going to touch and negatively on the economic standard of the country, and also the relationship we have with the foreign investors and we as diasporans.
Right. I do have to ask you, Mr. Amaechi, let me just quickly bring you in and look at the timing of this, right? It's very interesting when you think of the timing of where this ban had happened, and just days after we'd now confirmed the 64 ambassadors appointees. Let's talk about the timing, but also what does this mean? Is this politics, or is this a Trump administration, a diplomacy card? What are we looking at from your own standpoint, Mr. Amaechi?
We are looking at everything put together. In fact, this is the normal Trumpian game, ramping up pressure, as it were. Of course, don't forget that it was the pressure ab initio that led to the appointment of, or the nomination of ambassadors that have now been confirmed by the Senate. For over 2 years, approximately 2.5 years since President Bola Tinubu recalled all ambassadors, there was lethargy, and he was not able to reappoint them. And therefore, our foreign missions were left bare without people who would represent our interests as it is or as it should be. So it took Donald Trump declaring Nigeria a country of particular concern and ramping up pressure by saying that he was going to come to Nigeria guns a-blazing. For a government that has been so lethargic as Tinubu's has been, to now wake itself from self-imposed slumber. But again, having decided to do the right thing, most Nigerians were disappointed in the caliber of people that the Tinubu administration appointed or nominated as ambassadorial nominees. So that also generated its own controversy. Then some Nigerians had hoped, when it became apparent that President Bola Tinubu was not going to rejig that list, some Nigerians had hoped that the National Assembly, the Senate to be precise, will do the needful and perhaps reject some of those nominees. Except that people like us also did one, that was not going to happen in any way. Knowing the National Assembly, the character of this 10th National Assembly, that was not going to happen. And as many Nigerians predicted, including myself, the Senate went ahead to confirm these people. Not only going to confirm them, there was practically no screening. They were told to take a bow and go. So the international community is watching. Of course, they know what is going on in Nigeria. I would rather say that this latest move by the Trump administration is not a coincidence. It is a reaction to the what President Bola Tinubu has done with even the so-called nominations and subsequent confirmation. Don't forget, look, the whole thing became so absurd that even a dead man, Senator Adamu Talba, who died in July, was nominated. That will tell you the level of scrutiny, the level of care, the level of diligence that was brought to bear on the process. If you could nominate a man who died how many months ago as an ambassadorial nominee, it raises a lot of questions on the level of diligence that was put into the process, a process of appointing people who will be our ears and eyes in the international community. An ambassador, the position of an ambassador is a very prominent appointment because these are people who represent your country. They are the country writ large, if I may use that expression, in the international community. That is why nations put out their right foot. They bring in their best to represent them. But here we are, bringing in our worst to go and represent us. So instead of the nominations and now approval, giving confidence to the international community, they have read between the lines. And what they found was that what we are bringing to them are people that even Nigerians don't agree with. You don't.
All right, Mr. Amaechi.
Yes, please.
Yes, Mr. Amaechi, I think you made your point very, very clear. I'd like to ask Alexander, Mr. von Rügen, a very interesting question. Now, let's look at the travel ban. Let's look at it globally. Can a nation claim diplomatic progress when its citizens are actually facing global access problems, shrinking access? What does this say about Nigeria as a state, and what test does it put on its new diplomatic corps?
Look at the reasons for travel bans. This isn't an action just against Nigeria. If you look at the other nations that are part of the travel ban into America, there are nations which have governance problems. They have internal strife, civil war. They have terrorist problems, whether it's religious or just banditry. In the case of Nigeria, it's of particular importance for Africa. You're the most populous nation in Africa. You're the representative of West Africa. You're the seat of ECOWAS. You've got governance problems. You were recently accused of Christian genocide, which I think is too secular. What we really have to say is you have a problem of banditry and terrorism within the country against Nigerians. Let's not bring religion into it. So when there's a travel ban, it means you have poor documentation. For a Nigerian or any African or any country that is under a ban to enter America or the West, they have to demonstrate that there's been a background check, there's perhaps a biometric passport that proves that that individual is the person that's actually on that passport. And there's been checks and balances through e-visas or other forms of documentation within the country to show that this person isn't of criminal origin or of questionable political beliefs, such as terrorism. And they're not going to be a threat to the people of the country they're entering, namely the United States. This is the catalyst to these bans. Nigeria has demonstrated they've got some housekeeping to do. Now, when we use the analogy of housekeeping, you can clean a house thoroughly, or you can sweep the dirt under the carpet. And if you sweep enough dirt under the carpet to hide it, eventually you're going to trip over that mound of dirt on the carpet. And I think what we're seeing right now is our knee-jerk reactions to threats being made by America. America said, clean up your house, or we're going to impose sanctions on your country. And if you can't clean it up, we're going to come in to do it. That's kind of a Trump-type threat. In reality, I see Nigeria reacting to it, as my colleague indicated. Your ambassadors are your first line of defense to a country. These are the PR people. They are the first line of political lobbyists in foreign countries. So the vetting process for those individuals should be done to their ability, not as political favors. Your current permanent secretary of foreign affairs, Joe Keshi, has been very outspoken that many of the nominees should actually be in jail because they're coming from your states where there's been questionable activities, you've got your major problems, and there's an opinion that a lot of these appointees are a deflection to, say, internal corruption, and granting of these nominations gives a bit of diplomatic immunity for problems they may be facing within Nigeria right now. So are these the right people for the job? I can't tell you that. I guess the proof will come out eventually. But I think it's a reaction to pressures that are now being put on Nigeria. And perhaps, as my colleague indicated, this list has been put together very hastily, and haste makes waste when you don't think things out properly.
Von Rügen, how is this going to affect trade? How is it going to affect investment in Nigeria? How is it going to affect bilateral cooperation between Nigeria and the U.S., hence?
Well, I think that's got to be demonstrated over time. Keep in mind, these sanctions are reviewed every 180 days. Nigeria sent delegations to Washington. They're increasing their police force by 20,000 as part of those negotiations. They're increasing their military by 24,000. Part of the problem on who's in Nigeria is, are they really Nigerian? Do they have a fake passport? Did a corrupt government official give them documentation? You have porous borders in Chad, Cameroon, and Niger that aren't, thoroughly secured, and you've got an influx of possible terrorists coming in, which can reinvent themselves as Nigerians and possibly travel to America. That's the fear. So until the country demonstrates they're doing everything they can to curb those possibilities, and I see Nigeria's trying to move in the proper direction. Now, your question was, how does it affect trade? Well, trade is investor confidence is tied in with political risk and how investors are treated, foreign investors especially, in a country. If you have institutionalized corruption, where at every turn of the corner somebody's got their hand out for a bribe or causing pressure for an outside company, we see this in the oil industry, you're going to have limited investment. Trump has taken a very, very hard stance. He's defunded a lot of the programs which he feels the money was being mismanaged due to corruption. U.S. aid is one, defunding the UN, defunding a lot of the NGOs. Nigeria was a recipient for over $1 billion a year of that funding. That's now in flux. It's being held back. I think the reward to receive that funding again, if it's even going to come, will be to demonstrate efficiency and security of the country, so we can lift the travel ban, or America can lift the travel ban, and it's a sign of confidence in the country. That can only be proven over time. The investment climate is going to be affected in the meantime. You've got to have the stomach to invest in certain areas.
Alexander, many thanks for that, because that just set the tone for our next question. But first, let's go on a short break. When we return, we'll look at what our foreign policy should look like for the next 180 days if a review of this travel ban is to happen. Let's go on a short break. After the break, we'll ask that question. Stay with us. And you're welcome back. Earlier, you're joining us our second half of our big story today as we look to what Nigeria's foreign policy would look like, just giving the ban or the travel ban and restrictions on visas by the United States, just as Nigeria's Senate has now confirmed 64 non-career and career ambassadors. Joining us is Patience Key. She is the president of Nigerian Diaspora Chamber of Commerce. We also do have Alexander von Rügen as well, who is a global affairs analyst, joining us live from Ontario, Canada. And here in Lagos is Mr. Ikechukwu Amaechi, who is the editor-in-chief at Niche newspaper. Mr. Amaechi, just before the break, there were very pertinent points that Alexander raised here, which was one, that, you know, there are certain things that the United States do want to see in terms of insecurity and buffering our security, but also our body language as well. Of course, travel bans are not set in stone. There will be a review in another 180 days. And so it set the tone of what then will be the charge for the 64 new appointees or new ambassadors when it comes to public foreign policy, for Nigeria's foreign policy, especially as it pertains key figures like the US, UK, and even Europe, you know, those bilateral trades that sort of fuel Nigerian diaspora and, you know, our trade cross Atlantic. And so what then will be our foreign policy? And most importantly, can those changes be made in terms of buffering our security, you know, naming and shaming and tightening our borders when it comes to terrorism and Islamic jihadists and the likes?
Changes can be made if there is the political will to make them. There is nothing that is going on in Nigeria today that cannot be reversed if the government musters the political will to do what is right. Alexander was right. These things are not cast in stone. It is reviewed every 180 days. And therefore, if Nigeria wants to reverse this very unfortunate status, it must do the needful. The question is, can the Tinubu government muster the political will to do the needful? I doubt. And my doubt stems from what he's been able to do so far. Like I said earlier, we had an opportunity to start the reset with the appointment of ambassadors.
Mr. Amaechi, I hate to cut you, but I just want to bring this to the fore, just for your consideration. 180 days will mean 6 months right into the election period, and that would give, and this might just give the president somewhat of electoral credibility for a second term. Do you think he wouldn't have the political will to do that?
He won't. I dare say, even at the risk of being branded a pessimist, that the president is not looking for a renewal of his mandate in terms of people going there not to vote or not to vote. And that also explains most of the appointments he is making. If he has his eyes on the revalidation of his mandate by the people in whom the sovereignty of the Nigerian state resides, if he is depending on them, he won't be doing some of the things that he's doing. He won't be acting the way he's acting. He won't have very zero respect for public opinion. Mm-hmm. When the people say, look, we don't want this, a government that cares about public opinion, a government that will depend on the people for re-election, will do things differently from the way President Bola Tinubu is doing things. Okay, yes, the Minister of Defense, Nabadaru, was shoved aside. What is Metawale still doing as the Minister of State for Defense? What is he still doing? Look, the governor of Kebbi State was on record to have said 45 minutes before the adoption of the school girls, the military left the school and made it very, very easy for the terrorists to strike. Who is being investigated? Has any investigation been conducted to know who gave that order and why? How many months after, Nigerians have moved up. The 300 MAGA school children, who were told at the stage, 100 of them have been rescued. What has happened to the over 200 others that are still in captivity? What are we doing? Or are they going to be forgotten again like the Chibok girls? Look, unless and until in any other country, I continue emphasizing this, in any other country where terrorists go into a school and take away 300 students, that country will come to a standstill until those children are rescued.
Mr. Amaechi, Mr. Amaechi, I think that point is a very, very salient point there. But I also like to look at this from the international perspective. And Patience, please be patient with us. I have one question for you, but I have to ask Mr. von Rügen this question, and it leads into the last question I will be asking you. Mr. von Rügen, what diplomatic options does Nigeria have now regarding the ban caused by the insecurity that they purported is causing this ban? Is it diplomatic retaliation? Is it diplomatic engagement? What are the implications of either of these choices?
There is not a one-sentence answer to your question. First of all, the ban is a multitude of factors that is causing this ban. A lack of governance in Nigeria has caused, as my colleague just said, any other nation that would have 200 children kidnapped, that country would be on hold until the perpetrators were caught and executed. Okay? You're not going to talk a problem to death. You have to shoot it. And in past administrations in U.S. and Europe, they've used diplomacy. And I think perhaps other countries have, including Nigeria, have been spoiled by diplomacy. Diplomacy is basically paralysis through analysis. Trump's style is affirmative. He gives alternatives. He's a take charge kind of guy. People hate him for it,
and because of that,
people love him.
Because of these ultimatums that the U.S. is placing, should Nigeria follow up with likewise with retaliation, say ban on United States visas or applicants, or should they engage in perhaps maybe let's talk about this? What exactly should be their route now? What would best serve the common man or those in the diaspora?
Well, the knee-jerk reaction, unfortunately, in Africa, if a country from the West makes, and it can sometimes be misinterpreted as a colonialist order. It shouldn't be interpreted that way. It's got nothing to do with colonialism. If you're going to do reciprocal moves, then if the U.S. citizens are a threat to Nigeria coming in and causing havoc, of course, a reciprocal travel ban would be in order, but that's clearly not Nigeria that's been selected or targeted here. It's over 30 nations of questionable security breaches where they don't document their citizens properly. And in the case of America, we've had recent shootings by immigrants, and that's triggered a public outcry. Trump has really used that in his narrative to provide his deportation program and to reduce immigration. That doesn't mean Africans can't come to America. In fact, if you look at the statistic, the average Nigerian immigrant in America makes more money than the average American.
All right,
Okay,
Alexander.
if you want to take a second
All right, then,
analysis about it. So compared with other groups, but again, as soon as you start comparing nationalities, religions, and countries, well, suddenly you're a racist.
All right, then, Alexander.
I'm very pragmatic about it. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, I'm going to call it a duck.
All right, that's a very nice one. Well, Patience, now what's best for the diaspora community? Retaliation or engagement?
I think engagement is the best option. Looking into, he had asked question about, diplomacy, what should Nigeria do and things like that. I think what is reaction when things like that happen. We need to engage, but the engagement should start within the people. We should be engaging with our people. We have a weak government and governance and way of governance. We have a government that are not visionary. They are not people-centric. And like one of the speakers said, this is not the time to begin to look at, having elected the second time. It's about the people. Leadership is about the people. I'm currently in Nigeria because Nigerians in the Diaspora Chamber of Commerce, we came to launch the chamber in Nigeria, and we choose to launch it in Nigeria because Nigeria being the big brother of Africa, it's a great gain, it's a good thing, but it's not just enough. We need to also look into our borders. We need to be people-centric. We need to understand that the foremost responsibility of any government is protection of life and property for the people. So for being that we have come here and we have launched, what we as Nigerians in diaspora are looking at, we want to do, as also living in the United States myself, it's, we need to look at engaging with the U.S. policymakers, the business leaders and institutions outside the formal government channel. How do we do this? We are going to discuss reframing, to reframe Nigeria, beyond just the headlines. Present credible reform-oriented voices, because Nigerians in diaspora will come with strength. We have a voice, and we need to be up and doing in doing that. I was also a former chairman of Nigerians in Diaspora Organization, 2017 to 2020, and we know how we related with the State Department, White House, and things like that. We're also going to be looking at separating Nigerian citizens and entrepreneurs from political failures, because it's good to note that economic diplomacy, can often succeed where political diplomacy stalls. Secondly, we'll be looking into policy advocacy and advisory interface. How do we do this? We'll convene policy roundtables with U.S. stakeholders on Nigerians' security governance challenges that we're facing or we've been facing for a number of years now. We'll provide evidence-based briefing. Here we'll highlight diaspora contributions, our contributions in America, our contributions in every part of the world, and also our contribution to our country, the trade volumes and reform pathways. We'll also advocate for targeted accountability measures. Here we're looking at elite-focused sanctions, elite and government-focused sanctions, instead of blanket travel bans that harm ordinary Nigerian citizens. Okay. So if we're looking at, if we really want the Nigerian government, the community to do well, if that is why the United States is doing what they are doing, of which they have a right to do whatever they want to do, they're a country on their own, but we should be focused on the elites and the Nigerian government that are actually not doing what they need to do for the people, instead of just blanket travel ban that affect ordinary Nigerians. Thirdly, we'll be looking at the trade investment.
Patience, I hate to cut you, but unfortunately we do have to go. Thank you so much. We're pressed for time. We've gone over our time. I must say thank you to you, Patience Ndidi Key, who is the president of Nigerian Diaspora Chamber of Commerce. Also to you, Mr. Ikechukwu Amaechi, editor for Niche newspaper and public affairs analyst, and of course Rügen, Alexander von Rügen, there we go, who is a global affairs analyst joining us from Ontario, Canada. Well, we wait to see what the 64 will bring and what the next 6 months will look like for this ban, and whether or not there will be a reversal, only time will tell, and if this administration will have the political will to do the right thing.